So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for this opportunity to speak at Voice 22. My name is Meghraj Mookerji, and I'm the head of marketing for Openstream AI. I have two excellent gentlemen this afternoon with us. So we've got Nova Bhojwani from Tetrasoft and Dr. David McGee from Openstream. And gentlemen, welcome to this session. And why don't you introduce yourselves?
Yep, thanks, Meghraj. Hi, my name is Nova Bhojwani. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Tetrasoft. And we focus in the industry for developing commercial products and platforms. So we really take a digital view of how technology can enable some of the digital transformation that is happening with the leading organizations out there. Our focus has been to use technology as an enabler, but more importantly, looking at business processes, looking at areas where technology is more of an accelerator, both on commercial and operational excellence, and I'll talk more in detail as my term comes in, but that's really where our focus is as a global organization.
Short and sweet introduction for me. I run the engineering teams at Openstream, and I'm responsible for the technology development there.
Great. Thank you, David, and
Sure.
thank you, Nova, and welcome to this exciting session on enhancing customer experience using a plan-based collaborative conversational AI agent. So, David, first of all, why don't you take us through some of the challenges that you faced in the journey to reach with Openstream and where we are today?
Sure. I'd just like to highlight the last speaker's comment. They made a very important point about our industry, right? Which is that we're not here to build an assistant, but we're here to assist. Our technology is to be an assistance to the customers that we serve, right? And as such, we've ran into a number of challenges in developing a way of assisting customers with their goals. And the way we've tackled those particular challenges recently is to introduce more of a plan-based approach to how you engage with customers, oriented around the goals that they've established for themselves. So each of these goals can then be described in terms of a plan, and the dialogue that we build with them is based on those plans.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you for that insight. And moving on to you, Nova, why don't you talk to us about some of the challenges that our customers are looking to solve using conversational AI, and how Openstream is kind of stitching this together using the plan-based collaborative conversational agent.
Yeah, thanks, Meghraj. So I must first say, this is my first time at Voice 22, and first time I'm attending the Voice Summit. And I'm really encouraged in the way that everybody has come together and focusing on this topic, because I think as an industry, as a voice industry, we're going to see a huge change in the way voice is going to be taken as an input, right? I mean, this industry, which is running approximately at around $6 billion today, is expected to grow around 25% to around $20 billion in the next 5 to 6 years. And that's the opportunity that we're talking about. I mean, remember those days that everybody wanted to implement cloud and we were advertising cloud and nobody wanted to touch it? Financial institutes were scared about privacy and everything. That's where voice is. But the beauty of the voice is that the way that it is being implemented is the way that it will be successful. Now, when David talked about plan-based, I think the intent needs to be defined, right? When we're talking to our organization, and I sit in front of a lot of the chief executives, CIOs and CXOs, for them, it is not about a technology. It's about what is my end goal and how do I traverse to that goal. This is not a linear conversation about saying, I can implement a technology solution and that one single-threaded technology solution will be my end goal. So if I'm looking at a business goal, I will have to pivot. I will probably go 5 steps ahead, but then I have to get a reference to what I have already achieved to then pivot and get that right goal. And I think that's where voice or conversational AI systems need to behave. Right? These systems are going to be both collaborative, and at the same time, they have to have the ability to become agents of agents, right? This is going to become an ecosystem. This is not going to become a single-threaded Q&A session. And that's really of where the collaborative and the cooperative nature is going to come into picture. So that's what we're seeing in the industry. Also from an enterprise perspective, enterprises, in my opinion, who are successful in implementing voice solutions should not be looking at point solutions. You can start execution from a point solution perspective. However, your planning needs to happen at the enterprise level. You need to look at your inflection points of where voice can be an enabler. And we have sat down collaboratively with Openstream with at least 10 of our customers where we have done discovery workshops. We have looked upon their businesses processes and saying where can voice enable your entire end-to-end business process, and that's where we have injected. And that's the way I think it'll be successful.
Well, and that's how we organize our solutions, right? It's and even internally in the technology, it's around that business process. It's not focused on a conversation graph, right? Because in our technology, those get exposed in various ways with the user and whatever their particular intentions might be. But instead, it's a business process that drives the dialogue.
Right. And if I can just maybe comment on it, because this is an interesting story when we sat down with our customer. And this customer, I'm going to name it for privacy, but it's an insurance customer. And they had a very usual case for voice is contact center, customer service, but this was in the core claims area. And when we started talking to this customer about what they would like to do, they brought in two very important aspects, and this was coming from their CXOs, saying a lot of times when we do digital transformation, conversational AI being one part of it, we often talked about efficiency. And efficiency has an element of, can I save money? Can I reduce my headcount? And all those type of aspects. And he says, while that is important for me, I want to see effectiveness. Saying effectiveness of a solution is, if I'm implementing a solution, is it a scaled solution? Is it a solution that if I implement from my claims organization, it can fork out and probably go into my policy systems? Can it go into my underwriting systems? So it's not about customer experience on the external. My underwriters or people who are in the actual, which are internal, is about now employee experience. Can I improve their experience through internal system? So that led to a dialogue where we discovered we need to do more than just having a tunnel vision and only looking at a single business objective. And that's really what helped us.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think those were very, very good examples that you bring to the table. In fact, moving on to David, with your experience in academic research in the area of multimodal communication, I know this is a voice conference, but we are probably the only multimodal vendor partner that is there presenting at this conference. Now, a lot of times, Nova spoke about the discovery phase with the customer. A lot of times customers come to us with some very simplistic use cases, and then the conversation kind of rolls into more sophisticated use cases. So why don't you talk us through some amount of that work that we do as technology partners? Unlike a lot of platforms that advertise by saying that they are a no-code or a low-code platform. So why don't you talk a little bit about the technology prowess that Openstream brings to the table with the years of advanced research that you've done?
Sure. Well, Meghraj, as you know, we've been working on this for quite some time. I recently joined the company. We both did, but Openstream has been tackling this problem for over 20 years, as have I. And in particular, going back to your question about multimodal, it's a bit bizarre actually that the focus would exclusively be in any of our potential competitors on voice, given that nobody in the room restricts their own communication to voice. Right. So I've spent the bulk of my postgraduate time in engineering building products that incorporate all these modes together, right? We have gestures that we use, our facial expressions are critical, and those kinds of modes can completely invert the vocal part, or at least the textual description of that vocal part. And so we've been incorporating emotion recognition, facial recognition, these other modes that are really highly critical, and it's all dependent on what the customer experience needs to be in those circumstances, right? Are they entering a Costco? Are they at a health insurance kiosk, right? What is the particulars of that particular experience we're going for? And for multimodal to play that part, you have to analyze the actual user in situ, as we say in research, right? The way it actually happens.
Excellent.
And on the technology side, right, we are exposing a number of new techniques that should complement that tremendously. So, and we can talk more about that if we have time. Yeah.
Excellent. So Nova, now pervasive computing is something that is kind of making a lot of stir, and multimodal seems to be at the cornerstone of pervasive computing and bringing these kind of advanced technologies to your clients. How do you see the industry kind of develop from here, and some of the client conversations that Tetrasoft and Openstream have had in the recent past? If you can throw some light on that.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of citing by examples, because I think that brings in some realism to it. So I think the way that I look at it, what are we trying to solve, right? I mean, technology accelerates many of the business decisions, and I put these decisions into two elements, right? There's an operational excellence where every company wants to become much more efficient, save money, do cost savings. But there's a very big element of commercial excellence. And commercial excellence is about, can I drive revenue growth? Can I create new revenue channels? And that's extremely important, because whenever we go into a digital transformation, a CXO always wants to say, where am I going to get the money from? And that whole conversation pivots to saying cost savings and not about revenue streams. So in conversational AI, the way to present it, and at least as where we've been successful as Tetrasoft as an organization, is that conversational AI has a human element, right? We are trying to, in our best of our ability, I don't think we're going to do it 100%, because there's going to be a supervised learning, but to our best of our intent, we are trying to mimic human intelligence. And if we all think about human intelligence, we need to think about how our mind works, right? We have the ability, even at this point of time when Meghraj is asking me questions or we are conversing with all of you, is that I have abilities to pivot multiple times in my conversation in my mind, not being vocal, but in my mind. Now take that in from a technology perspective, and now I need to mimic that from our technology and our business systems. My business systems need to behave the same way. My customer experience has to be in such a way that they don't know the difference between whether Nova is speaking or a virtual assistant or an agent is speaking. And that's the level that we're trying to achieve, which means that I have to have, to what David said, a technology that can parse through my emotion, my intents, my sentiments, but also traverse back and read how I interacted with you 1 hour back, or if I record your state in my last conversation. And if I can do that, then I am getting close to human intelligence. And that's the technology that we're building. So when we were scouting, and obviously we have more than 50 customers that we work with globally, when we were getting these questions from a conversational AI perspective, we were evaluating, and we were very fortunate to get into Openstream and have that collaboration, because this communication now has ability to display in the same viewport. I can have text, I can have a video, I can have an avatar. And by the way, it was interesting for some of our retail customers to say, can I customize my avatar? I have a brand of my own. I want to customize that avatar, which is a representation of my brand. And yes, that was possible. So all these things, if were possible in a single mode, as against just a chatbot, which was a text dialogue or a voice dialogue, is the way that we need to change the system. And I think that is really the future for voice. Right? The other element that I want to add is, data is key. Right? They're a majority. When we used to talk about this big data concept 10 years back, and I think voice was a missing element out there. I think we heard in this conference that there is, I don't know how many terabytes and records, and everybody talked about the use cases. But that's an unexplored area. People have yet not used that asset that we have in terms of voice as data. We use that only for customer service or contact centers, but we have not used that voice for decision making. Because that voice, apart from having data, has emotions, has empathy, has many other things that you can extract out and start making decisions. So it's a very, very powerful thing of what this voice can do for changing the way the industry looks at it.
If it's capable of making such decisions, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, the key to it is, can you build a cognitive agent that's able to measure those responses, that's able to track the beliefs, such as they can track, of the user they're engaged with, right? And then to orient around the goal.
Right.
And in so doing, be able to then have a fuller conversation, to be able to then direct things back to the main topic when time is right, to have its own initiative in the scene, right? And these are all missing from the industry today. So we hope to fill that gap.
Right. I remember just from that conversation, our chief executive, Rama, and Openstream's chief executive were in a conference, and this one CEO stands up, and he didn't come from a technology background. He was actually from a core industry, manufacturing. And he says, I keep hearing about this cognitive, I keep hearing about AI. Give me in one simple word what it means. And that one simple word with these CEOs talked about, Raj and Rama, were, think about what does a human have that makes it work? And it says the mental state. And that cognitive is that mental state, right? So draw yourself towards, when we talk about artificial intelligence, when we talk about cognitive, it is that mental state that we have. And if we can help achieve as close as possible, and I've always said it's not going to be 100%, but as close as possible, you are achieving very high efficiency and effectiveness.
So then it can reason, right? Both hypothetical reasoning about the future and deliberative reasoning about the past, and use that reasoning to then capture precisely what's happening in terms of its own understanding of the user's mental state, right? And from there, be able to plan an engagement with them. Well, if the user believes that if I believe they're trying to accomplish this particular goal, to sign up for health insurance perhaps, right? Then eventually I need to get a set of preconditions outlined for them, right? Otherwise I can't sign them up for this particular.
Right. And I think that is what we have to look at from a dialogue, right? I mean, if Meghraj is, let's just say, my assistant from a human perspective, and I want to be successful, I'm not going to just ask him, how can I reach to the airport? I think he's obligated to tell me much more on that. So you talk to a virtual assistant and says, I need to reach my airport and I have a flight at 5 o'clock. I may get a response back saying, yes, here's an Uber or your black car is booked or something like that.
Right, but with Openstream, you just say, I'm going to the airport. And because we built a cognitive agent, we then can assume by default, you're probably trying to catch a flight.
That's
and then we can help you with what is entailing that capturing of the flight, right? So,
yeah. So I don't know, Meghraj, if we went on a different path, but we're pretty passionate about this area.
No, absolutely. No, I'm kind of very excited about the different possibilities that exist. And in fact, not only us, even the analysts. So last year was the first time that Gartner, one of the leading analysts and advisors in the industry, have started their own Magic Quadrant. And they had evaluated close to about 250 odd vendors across the globe, and concentrating on enterprise conversational AI platform. And Openstream happened to be the sole visionary for the completeness and vision and the ability to execute these kind of conversational journeys. So David, you've been a veteran in this space, so why don't you talk a little bit about your personal journey through from where we were as as conversational agents or chatbots, as they used to be called, and we call ourselves advanced virtual assistants. That's the right term. So why don't you take us through your personal journey with the technology, and then maybe Nova, you can follow it up with yours.
Sure. I started with the technology as most of the technologists in the area, right? Building primitive types of chatbots. And those are comprised primarily by classifiers for the language that's understood in the domain. And their limits were apparent immediately, right? And so our objective in overcoming those limits is to better understand, at least in terms of voice, the natural language component, first off. And for us, that means not just identifying what might be a potential intent, but more accurately corresponding the entire utterance and understanding the logic of the entire utterance so that that can be used for, again, this deliberative and hypothetical planning I talked about, reasoning. It's that beginning, I think, understanding that, as Nova had speculated, that the mental states, capturing those somehow, even if they're very primitive, of the cognitive agent as it's processing through, is critical to achieving the goal. And so we started to, early on, right, experiment with prototypes in this area. And we're glad to see that they're becoming product today. Yeah.
Excellent. I think, that the product journey is something that we are scripting. And, unlike the a very single-minded chatbot kind of conversations, we're now looking at multi-turn conversations and making it as natural as possible and as closest to humans as possible. And this humanizing of AI is something that Openstream is kind of advocating in most of its platforms, right? So
yeah, most people, before you go on, most users don't want answers necessarily. As Nova is saying, they want to achieve their objective, right?
Absolutely.
And their objective could be multiple.
Yes.
They could speculate on multiple objectives that they're after. And we have to drive the conversation in various ways to get to the end objective for both.
Sure. Noah, how about your journey?
So I think from a journey perspective, I think, pandemic probably has accelerated much of this digital transformation everybody was talking about. And I think the thing that the pandemic also has done is many things have shifted online, right? This online thing has actually made everybody think that voice is going to be even more important. And how we interact with people. I don't want to go to the shop anymore. I want to order everything online. But if I want to order everything online, or I want to do my, which I think somebody mentioned in this conference, conversational commerce, I now need to be prepared that I want a experience that will lead to my intent, right? And I think that is where that market is going. Now, one thing that obviously we'll have to be cautious about is that I truly believe that one product, and Openstream probably is an exception to it because I think it's bringing in multimodality, it's bringing in multiple things that customers want to see. But I think we need to be ready to work in an ecosystem. There needs to be an integration. And I've seen, because in some cases, something does not get satisfied by a product like Openstream has the ability to integrate with other products and create an orchestration layer. And I think that's going to be the success of the industry. As we move forward, one thing as voice becomes important, privacy and ethics will play an important role in this, right? I mean, we have heard about voice, synthetic voices. We have heard about a lot of interesting concepts in this conference. But I think everybody has also got a question mark behind everybody's head is saying, where is the privacy part of it? Where's the ethics part of it? Can I control my entity? There's a little bit of this Web3 going to be coming into the picture from how I will protect it. But I mean, those might be some of the things that we'll have to be cautious of, or product companies will have to be thinking about of how that can be incorporated. Because if we again need to go to that humanizing element, that one word is trust. And that trust is going to come through some of these things of privacy and ethics as we go into this dialogue.
Or even partly from the technology. Just to finish the thought there, if the assistant can't explain themselves, then it's very challenging to develop trust. Right?
Yeah.
And I think
Absolutely.
we're going to go to questions, right, Meghraj?
Absolutely. So gentlemen, I know we are running out of time, but David, one last question. Where do you see Openstream going in the next 6 to 12 months? And, maybe Nova, you could...
I'm just going to flash on that last item I mentioned, which is that we're developing systems that can explain themselves. right? And the only realistic way to approach that is through this capturing of the mental state of the agent, ensure that they can then react appropriately.
Yeah. And my last comment would be saying, voice is here to stay, right? This is not going anywhere. This is the next wave that is there from a digital transformation perspective. Discover, plan big, plan at enterprise level, execute at a business level. You will see success. We have implemented this from a Tetrasoft perspective in collaboration with Openstream across at least 10 companies, and it has seen success. I mean, we just got a note today morning that we had implemented actually at a regional level for one product, and they went product version. They actually calculated their customer value based on that, based on some formula, and they've given us the go-ahead to do it now globally. So that would be my closing comment.
So thank you, David, and thank you, Nova, for all your interesting comments. Then that leaves this room with a lot of thoughts, that people can think about, and we truly appreciate the partnership that Tetrasoft has with Openstream, and it's the partner ecosystem that we really plan to leverage in the next 6 to 12 months to kind of grow and go from strength to strength.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for attending this session.
Good.
Thank you.